Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakal Kodesh. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of GMS, who are the true leaders of Israel today. And salutations to all of the Akim who do this work in truth and sincerity, who risk their lives and their freedoms to do so, as well as the scattered Israelites who come looking like the heathen but are not, by way of their forefathers' seeds who are Israelite men. The true name of the Most High is Yahweh, and his son's name is Yahushai. And the Lord's holy chosen people are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, as were the ones who suffer under the curses in the book of Deuteronomy. My name is Yakalia, and I'm from the GMS Jamaica Kingston camp. And this video is a lamback based off of the brother GMS Watchman's video that he put up regarding the difference between the Israelites and the Hamites. Because Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, who are the current rulers today, this is their kingdom. They have taught the world that all so-called black people are the same, but that is not true. And even then, when you look at so-called black people, which according to Esau, Edom is determined by the color of your skin, how could that really be so? Because all nations, apart from Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, are different shades of browns, whether it be a so-called African or a so-called Chinese or so-called Japanese, so-called Pacific Islander or so-called Arab, or any nation, right, that's on this earth. The only nation that doesn't have pigment that is different shades of brown are these so-called white people. They are red. They're pink-fleshed, all right? Pink-colored, or red. Some of them are really red. You know, Genesis lets you know, chapter 25 and verse 25. So even that whole color thing and judging based off of the skin color, that if you're of this skin color, a darker brown, then you're black. No, that's not something that's real. The way that the people on this earth are actually separated is by way of their nations. All right, it's not about the look. Okay, and Yahweh Shemishai has put a difference between the Israelites and the Hamites. The Israelites are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, as were the ones who suffer under the curses, and the Hamites are the so-called Africans. These same so-called Africans were the ones that had us in our first Egyptian captivity, because in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68, it says, and the Lord shall bring thee again into Egypt, right? That first one, that ancient Egyptian captivity, was under the Hamites, okay? Now I'm going to play this video, and I also have my own personal experience that I'll talk about after listening to this. Let's listen.
Involved because I'm a grown-ass person and I've got work to
Talk
go
on that
to.
though. What do you mean?
They make videos like, oh,
So the first precept that you see the brother post is 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 39. All flesh is not the same flesh, and that is correct.
And I've got work to
Talk
go
on that
to.
though. What do you mean?
They make videos like, oh, what race that you would not date, and they're like Somalis. I'm like, but we are black, so how can you?
Do you know what's deep though? Should I tell you why that is though? Because you see, like with black ancestry, if we go back in history, there's like literally more or less two lineages, which is like Shem and Ham. So it's like this is like prophetic. So obviously they're both black, but they're just different types of black.
Yeah.
Because it's like cousins. Do you know what I mean? So like when you go towards West Africa, obviously their features are slightly different to like East Africa, because there's just two different lineages. So when like Jamaicans or Nigerians are like, oh, you lot ain't black. It's like, you ain't are black. That's what they're trying to say. It's like, you're not, do you know what I mean?
You're not black.
Yeah, like when you look at Sudanese people, you know, they it's just a different type of look. So obviously that's why they just see it as, nah, you're not the same kind of.
Right? So, you know, it's interesting that she mentioned Jamaican and Nigerian, right? Because I am born and I am from Jamaica. Okay, I don't really know where my actual lineage comes from, because my father's father is actually a so-called white man, or looks like a so-called white man, rather. And they are Sephardic Jews that came from Europe and America, etc. But I'm going to speak to my experience because I had a Nigerian friend in college, right? So that's the Jamaican Nigerian thing that she mentioned. And one day she said to me, she's a medium brown complexion, and she's from the upper class of Nigeria, right? And I mentioned that for a reason. Because some people, when they hear what I'm about to say, they may think, oh, it's like a class thing or something like that. But what I'm about to say is completely spiritual. So one day we were just talking and she was like, in Africa, they mistreat me. They treat me badly. And I'm like, why? Like, I was shocked. Mind you, I'm in college at this time. I'm not in the truth or anything like that. And she's like, they mistreat me in Africa because they say that in Africa that I am not the same people as them, but I am confused. She has the thick Nigerian accent. She's like, I am confused that they treat me this way because it's like, I thought that we were all like the same people. We are all black people. But they tell me that we are not the same people. And I remember hearing that at that time, and I didn't really think too deeply about it. But it is the spirit of Yahweh Shemishai that leaves certain gifts within our lives that we can reflect on, and just to show the spirit. And right there, when she told me that, it was the spirit within us, our Israelite spirit, that yes, there is a separation between us, the Israelites, and those African people. And those African people, those Hamites, it's like they already knew that she was not their people. And she said to me as well, if I'm remembering correctly, because it's been like a decade, she said that you and I are more similar, you see? And that's all completely spiritual, man, because I'm an Israelite, point blank period, okay? I'm teaching this word, I believe sincerely, in the name Yahweh Shemishai, and I have called upon that name, and I have been delivered or saved, not like in a way that's like, oh, I'm out of this captivity, but like in a time of trouble when I've called upon the name of Yahweh Shemishai, the Lord has responded, and that is like in the case of, for example, people call, when a demon holds you down in your sleep, they call it sleep paralysis. Every single time that it has happened to me and I've called upon the name, the demon has released. Okay? And that kind of power, that kind of gift is given only unto the Israelites. Okay? So it's all very deep and it's all very spiritual. And she, in fact, is an Israelite, looking back at it, of course. And so the brother posted some precepts in Genesis chapter 10 and verse 1. It says, now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the floods. So yes, there's Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham, that's where the Africans come from. All right. If you look at the Sudanese people, you can Google them. That's like their dominant look. And even when I was in the world and I would look at like the Africans, and you see their cultures and like what they do to themselves and how they scar themselves and the things that they wear and like stuff like that in like certain parts of Africa, I really would not take to it. Actually, there were times where I think like me and them are not the same type, but I didn't understand what I was really saying at that time, but it's the spirits within us that simply just rejects such things. But of course, you do know we have all people in all kinds of madness and whatever else, at this moment in time. And so there's a separation. And of course, we come from Shem, right? And through our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, unto Jacob, came the Israelites, okay? So we have another scripture the brother posted, Exodus 11 and verse 7. Yahweh doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. Exodus 1 and verse 19. The Hebrew women are not as the Egyptian women, for they are lively, right? So Israelite women are the Hebrew women, Egyptian women are the Hamite women. And it's true. You can tell the difference between the spirits, all right? You really can. Even those that are not in this truth, they are able to see when they're an Israelite, they can see like a difference. They don't really like some of our people like really just do not like those ways, because it's innate within us, right? And then the brother posted Sirach chapter 12 and verse 16 from the GNT, and I'm gonna read it from here, and it says, all flesh consorteth according to kind, and a man will cleave to his like, right? So every nation will cleave unto their like. So that's why you see so many times that the so-called Chinese, they really, no matter where they're at, they gather together. The Elamites, which are the so-called Indians, Iranians, the Red Dots, the East Indians, they gather together. The Edomites, they gather together. It's only our people that don't have that harmony, but that's a curse upon our people, you see. And the Lord also has scattered our people. That's another thing that has happened, right? But when it is that if you reflect upon your life and you can see, well, it depends, right, where you're at, even though you see people like walking around on the streets, you may say, oh, that's like a brother or something. That's not necessarily even a brother. That could be a Hamite. You know what I'm saying? But like in my experiences, I can talk about moving throughout life, I have always been gathered with my own people, the Israelites, right? When I really look back and look at the friends that I've had, etc., it's very clear to me, no matter what kind of flesh they come in or what they look like, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, man. And I'm going to bring out something else. And this is from the Zondervan's Bible Dictionary. And it says here, Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of the 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. You see? So it says it right there as well, for further proof, for further edification, right? And Yahweh Shai is only about the Israelites as well. We are separated from these other nations, okay? And here it is in the book of 2 Ezra chapter 6. I'll start at verse 54. And after these, Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures, of him come we all, and the people also whom thou hast chosen. So all nations come from Adam, but there's a chosen people, right? All this have I spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes. The world is made for the Israelites. We are the ones that inherited everything, the promises, the kingdom, everything. The law, statutes, and commandments were given unto the Israelites and no other nation. We are the beloved of Yahweh Shai. We are the precious ones. Okay? We are the apple of the Lord's eye. Yes, we are being punished right now, but our punishment is coming to an end soon. And we will rule righteously, and we will live in eternal bliss and happiness. Okay? As for the other people, talking about these other nations, which also come of Adam, thou hast said that they are nothing, but be like unto spittle, and hast likened the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. So these other nations, including the Hamites, these so-called Africans, are looked upon as spittle by Yahweh Shai. Okay? And now, O Lord, behold these heathen which have ever been reputed as nothing. So the Lord says that these heathen are nothing, including these Hamites. They're separate from us. The Lord loves us. The Lord does not love them. Period. And the Lord actually hates the so-called white man as well. Esau, Edom. You can read that in the book of Malachi chapter 1. Have ever been reputed as nothing, and have begun to be lords over us and to devour us, which is the curse that is currently upon us. But we, thy people, The Lord's holy chosen people, the Israelites, whom thou hast called thy firstborn, thy only begotten, and thy fervent lover, are given into their hands. If the world now be made for our sakes, why do we not possess an inheritance with the world? How long shall this endure? And we know why, because we went off, etc., and we're going through the curses now. But soon, the deliverance of the nation of Israel will come with Yahushai. Okay? So with that, I'd like to say all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Shem Yishai, Bashim Kodesh, Wa Abad, Babal, Shalom.